Hello, welcome to another video from the Fantasy Legion. I've got Sean with me. How are you,
Hello,
Sean?
Al. Yeah, very good, thanks. Yeah, and a lot of breaking news, isn't it? I presume
Yeah,
that's
very exciting stuff. So Cam
it broke,
Newton just
yeah, broke
signed
last.
with the Patriots for a 1 year, £7.5 million dollar deal.
Yeah, yeah.
What are,
Seemed
your,
a
what,
very
are, what are your thoughts about that? What are your immediate thoughts about that?
I personally don't see it probably the way that you do, and a lot of other people see it. I think it's quite odd because for this period of time, they've gone along on the Stidham bandwagon. They've known Brady's been leaving for quite some time, and there are a lot of quality quarterbacks out there. You're limited with how much time you're going to have to work with your starters. I think New England are a team that are likely to be in rebuild mode. I don't think the quality of the team is there that it was a few years ago. And I do think that Brady plays a very big part in all of this when he was there alongside Belichick. And I'm not denying that Belichick is the organizer and the real brains behind the whole thing. I'm not denying any of those things. But what I think is the big issue here is this is a completely different style of quarterback coming back from quite a serious injury, which we still don't know. He looks good. I've seen the tapes, and he looks very, very fit and ready to go, and that's great. But he has got an injury history, and I think that's fair to say as well. So it's a good deal for him. I think it's a good deal for them, at least for this season. It's going to help the team. It's better in the kindest way to Stidham. It's going to be better than Stidham. But there are a lot of issues for me from a coaching perspective because you've got to get that team ready in a more limited time. And they're not used to playing with a mobile quarterback. And it's a completely different transference of skills because offensive linemen have got to do different things when they're moving around. And they've got to be prepared to move further out from the pocket. So it's a different thing entirely. And I'm not saying that this NFL organisation can't be ready. It's New England, for God's sake. They've won 6 Super Bowls. Of course they can. But it is harder. And they are working in limited time. So I suspect, if I'm honest, I'm looking at it logically. I think it's great for him. It's good for the organisation. Certainly puts them back in contention to be dangerous. No doubt about it. Good for Cam's fantasy value. He's going to be a decent... you'd like to have him as a second quarterback this year, just in case anything goes wrong. I think he's good value. So overall, interesting. But I think I would still have some very big concerns. And that's how I've sort of looked at it so far.
Right. My opinion of it is that it's a 1 year sort of prove it deal.
Yeah.
So Cam's still in the spotlight. He's got a big organisation. The
Yeah.
Patriots, if it doesn't work, it hasn't cost them anything anyway. So really, quarterback terms, they've not paid a lot. $7.5 million for
cheap.
For the skills of what Cam Newton could potentially bring to the table. And Bill Belichick wouldn't said that what are you going to do when Tom Brady leaves? Who are you going to find to fit your scheme? And he says that we don't do that. What we do is build a scheme around the skills of the quarterback. Now, what it tells me is when they've been doing these sort of off-season drills, they realise Stidham isn't quite ready yet or isn't up to it. And this sort of puts them back in contention because, Bill Belichick's a master. So, when you look at people like Chicago Bears, they paid a 4th round pick for someone like Nick Foles. Probably, and we know the Patriots have been fined $1.1 million. They've lost a 3rd round pick for filming the Bengals. Was it the Bengals they filmed?
Bengals and Cleveland. We probably should talk about that at the end of this. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so you could argue he's got his pick back there by signing Cam Newton. If Nick Foles is worth a 4th, then Cam Newton's got to be worth a 3rd, and you kind of negated that sort of fine, really, in a way. And if it doesn't work out, it's 1 year. They don't. And as is also a thing, I think I read that if they sign him on a 1 year deal and then he leaves next year, they're due a compensatory 3rd round pick or something if he leaves. So it kind of maybe it gets another pick back there if it doesn't work out. So
well, I think the loss of the pick and the 1.1 filming thing we'll talk about in a minute, but I don't think with the way New England are, they're fairly well set up for 2021. They have all their picks except that 3rd round pick. And as you rightly pointed out, they have a number of ways to gain back picks. And I would argue that he is definitely worth at least a 3rd round pick, Cam Newton, maybe more, particularly if he proves it, obviously. And they may well re-sign him. But I think there are some serious red flags in this organisation now, which worry me. And I'm not sure that pick has all the fingerprints of Bill Belichick on it. I'm not sure about
I
that.
think it
I
does.
think
I think it makes perfect sense. I think the finances are right. I think that was key to them doing the deal. They weren't going to overpay for Cam. They've given Cam an opportunity, and he's going to want to prove it. And he is a good player. We know he.
2 years ago, he was arguably 2 years ago, he was arguably an MVP in the NFL, wasn't he?
Well, I mean, he has, he's had some massive years in fantasy. He's a dual threat. Obviously, his shoulders, he's had 2 operations in the last 3 years, but you're not paying the price. It's not like you're paying a big price for him, really.
I think it's an interesting move. I'm not sure it completely settles the quarterback situation at all. I'm sure he'll start Cam, and I'm positive he will begin the season, but I would say there's a very high risk for him as the season rolls along for lots of reasons.
Yeah, but just think if they've got a starting quarterback that could make them relevant. If it all clicks together, it could make them still relevant this year. That would be pretty amazing, after losing someone like Brady. So
I think the great thing for fantasy is Cam is still going to be relatively cheap, although his price will climb a little bit with the news. He's still going to be quite cheap, and therefore that's good. So, and I must be honest as well, in a couple of best ball leagues, I picked Cam up as well. So, as you know, in one that we've done together,
I picked him up cheap in a couple as well because you literally not got a lot to lose, have you? It's all about value.
No, it looked it's one of those. The league I picked him up in, the one we played in, was one of those leagues where you can start 2 quarterbacks. So I was looking for a third cheap quarterback that has big upside, and he's clearly it. So I'm happy with that, but I am concerned, just being honest, that I just think there is a high injury risk with him, particularly in that offense, particularly in the way that they're going to be and the less time they've had to gel together.
I agree.
We probably are going to see some time with Stidham at some point during this year, even if it's only for a game or so. We are going to see what Stidham's all about. Now, it does make New England relevant, but there is some question marks, and I think we should come on to that about New England. You see, it's not just the second time they've been caught out. This 1.1 million fine, they pleaded guilty straight away this time. As an organisation, they're beginning to look very much like Man City, the football club over here. I mean, I'm beginning to really look at them and not think, it's a dirty organisation, and I don't like some of the stuff that's going on here. There really is no need for this.
They're always looking to give themselves an edge. I mean, like any team that wins. I mean
you were playing.
People sort of are against them because they win a lot, but they're good at what they do. I mean, it is a bit. You don't really want to see that underhanded stuff, but
you see stuff like this. You see stuff like this going on. Where coordinators leave a team, then hand the playbook off to their next employers in college game. You see this sort of stuff going on. I don't like seeing it at the NFL level for lots of reasons. It cheapens the games a bit, and it leaves a mark on their 6. I mean, the 6 Super Bowls are hard to argue with, but it does leave a mark. It does make me think about them in a different light, and I just hope that we let's see you for you. Don't use all these inside information to your advantage. I mean, be a coach. That's what I would say. Be a team. Play. You don't need this. You really don't. Don't cheat it. Don't cheat the process. Go out and earn it. And
I don't think New England fans are going to be bothered about the way they do it. I mean, it doesn't look good as a whole, I suppose, outsiders looking in. But they've got a winner mentality, and they're probably prepared to do whatever it takes to give them that edge. So I don't know. Bill Belichick's a master. I mean, he's probably one of the best sporting coaches there's ever been. I mean, he just knows how to keep doing it. That's why you can never write him off. So while this looks like a totally different scheme, they'll make it work because they're New England and they're Bill Belichick. So
it is a completely different team, but let's see what happens once they get towards the football field. We're already seeing, as we predicted on our podcast, didn't we, together, that we felt that this was going to be the most difficult year in fantasy in terms of keeping players on the field, and we're seeing a lot of that already starting to happen. So players are starting to come up with ACL tears before the season started. Okay, they're not big fantasy names and probably very irrelevant at the moment, but it is happening.
They do affect fantasy, some of them. But,
and so it's going to be interesting. But he's going to make them relevant. He's going to make them a definite immediate playoff contender, Cam. No doubt about that. It's New England. You always think they can, flatter to deceive. And even with Stidham, I felt they could at least be 8-8, and who knows? They only need 1 or 2 wins to go their way, and they're the master of that.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, you just think I think New England fans are going to be happy with the news. I can't see how they wouldn't be because he's a big name on his day. He's as good as anybody, you'd say, or he was.
He
If he
is.
can refine his form and keep injury free, I mean
He
that's
is.
going to be looking like the best money ever spent, isn't it?
It could do. It's cheap enough to be worth the risk. I mean, as you say, if you're talking about risk and reward, from my perspective, I'd say it's a great risk. I don't have a problem with it. From the devil's advocate point of view, I think there is a really, really big chance of some sort of injury to him this year for lots of reasons. He's carrying the risks anyway. He plays with those kind of risks. I admire the way he plays. Very cavalier approach. I respect that a lot. And it's probably going to be really good for Cam because you're playing in an organisation that's going to treat you very differently in terms of you're going to be expected to do certain things a certain way. So I think for his development, it's going to be very good. So it should be interesting to watch how this plays out. He's certainly very cheap in fantasy still. So, if you've picked up shares already in a league, well done. I think you set to capitalise straight away. You've got potential top 10 quarterbacks in there, and that's great value, isn't it?
Oh, exactly. Yeah, I'm very happy with the shares I own.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to see what the viewers actually think. What their opinion is on the way New England do things. Obviously, they're brilliant. You can't argue with their results. So, does it cheapen it some of the ways they've done it? I mean, you'd say they're minor things, really. I mean, do you nearly need to find the?
They're serious, Al. These are serious things.
I know
when you're watching a team that's won, and I think it was 1-11 at the time, and you're playing them the next week, and you're already in the playoffs, and you do this sort of stuff, it tells an awful lot. I know you're a win mentality here. This is what they're all about, but really no need. And I just think this kind of stuff really, it's like bugging, the coach's room or bugging the dressing room, or it's just wrong. Really, the NFL. They've made a big example of the previous time when they took away a first-round draft pick. Sorry to say this, they should have taken away another one. And that's the way you have to stamp down on this kind of stuff.
I think if it was only a minor sort of infringement, and they had a kind of excuse that they were doing some documentary or something, didn't they?
Yeah. Okay. Well, it is what it is. The NFL must have given what they think is a fair fine, but I just hate this stuff. And for me, fines should get worse, never easier. Even if once you've been caught out, you should keep stamping down. That's the best way to get.
It's the kind of thing that if you support the team, you're okay with, and if you don't, then it's kind of annoying, isn't it? But you can't argue with their results. They've been absolutely superb last 10, 15 years.
I feel there are some big question marks. I mean, the good thing you see in the American football, the positive thing is that, okay, you don't have a system where people drop down divisions and stuff, which is great. But in the football, over this side of the pond, a team that pretty much cheated have cost teams to go down. That's very likely to have happened. And, there is litigation that could happen because of this. So, it is a dangerous precedent when teams start doing things that are, shall we say, flying on the edge and certainly past the edge of what is fair. So I do worry about it, but it has been dealt with by the NFL quickly. Patriots did admit to it, so that's a step. And I guess it's done. They paid a third-round pick, and that is still expensive.
Well, yeah, like I say, I think they might have got it back here, and they've got it at a nice price as well. So.
Yeah,
good luck to them. I mean, they know how to do a deal, don't they? They always know how to do a deal, and I think they've done another good one.
7.5 million is very cheap in today's market. I think
it is, and it's 1 year, so it's a prove it deal. He'll want to stay. If he's a success, he's going to want to stay, and it's going to work out well for both sides if that's the case. So,
yeah, definitely.
Well, I'd love to hear what the viewers think, what their opinion is of it. What do they like the deal? I mean, it looks like a fantastic deal. I don't know if you're a Patriots fan, how you would ever be upset with that, but I'm sure there are people that are. So
yeah, I'm curious to see where people think Cam will finish. I'm really interested. If you've got a comment on where you think Cam will finish in terms of quarterbacks, where will he be? Will he be in the top 10? If so, whereabouts? And if not, where will he likely finish?
Where will you be? I mean, as a drafter, you want to think, well, where will he? What value will he cost me? Will he cost me like QB 25? If so, I think he can outrun that number. I think he can outperform that number. And if he doesn't, it's not going to cost me a lot. I wouldn't want to pay top 10 QB price for him. because you're literally losing the upside, and the injury risk is there as well. So it's got to be, buying at the right price again. But he certainly.
Well, I take your analogy perfectly on board, Al, and I
Where
always
would
say
you be happy drafting him? What QB number?
I'd be very happy to get him as a second quarterback in any league standard as well.
Because there is a massive upside because of the dual threat, isn't there? So
I want him as late as possible, but obviously the thing is with this news, you expect him to climb. It's unclear how far, but I'm sure he will climb because again he
didn't have a team.
He's
so he has to climb.
It's a good team. I don't think he's got a lot of weapons to work with. But I think, there are some beneficiaries of this deal as well now. So some players definitely get a tick up, don't they? Can only help them. Yeah, so cool. One of the biggest beneficiaries to this deal might be somebody like a N'Keal Harry, who could really take a step on with Cam, because he does come back to the ball very well, N'Keal. So it could work very well for him this year. We'll have to see how it plays out.
Another problem for us this year is working out who are the wide receivers you've got to target. I mean, which ones do you want? You've got got Sanu. They signed Marcus Lee. They've obviously got N'Keal Harry. They've got Jacoby Myers. It's hard to pick. You hope it's going to be Harry, wouldn't you?
Well, I think Harry has a good opportunity, but he's not proven it anyway. So he still has a couple of big flags around him at the moment, but there's certainly potential there. I think Marquise Lee is probably is one of those that I think we've seen some very good stretches with him in different and poorer organisations, so he could definitely take.
Obviously, Edelman's going to be. Do you think Edelman will still be the main man? Probably.
Yeah, I think so. I think so, but again, it's tricky because older. And might be a good thing in a way to start the season off with. Edelman may really benefit from this in the early stages of the season, where you don't have to worry too much about the prep time. But I suspect that after the first sort of 4 or 5 games, it gets a bit harder. You need all that, robustness. You need to be at the top of your physicalities to be able to play the long period of the games. You're going to carry some knocks. So after the first few games, I think for him it gets more grinding rather than less. He may benefit the first few games because you haven't got the wear and tear at camp and stuff, which is good. But yeah, I do have some big concerns over him as well from a fantasy perspective. Again, you say value all the time, and I just don't think his value meets his price at the moment for Edelman. I think there are better targets around him, but that's a story for another day.
Yeah, indeed it is. So if you've enjoyed the video, please give it a like. We'd love to hear any comments you have on anything we just discussed. What's your opinion? And thanks very much for watching.
We'll see you on the next one.